two different people here. Let me in. How's your morning? Busy?
Yeah, we're expecting some snow, and it doesn't snow here, so I had to run out and get some of the essentials because everything's going to kind of slow down here for the next few days.
Oh my gosh. There you go. Ashley's here. How cold does it get again?
It's not even cold, I've lived in much colder places, but it doesn't snow here, so I think it's 30 degrees, and we don't have any ice or anything, but we're expecting a couple inches of snow, so everybody's freaking out.
Let's see here. Letting people in. How's everyone today? Nice to see some new faces here. Coaches are here, fantastic. DeLinda, great to see you here. How's everything
Hey.
on the
And
West
Yeah,
Coast?
great program. Everything's great. We're in, you might have heard of the fires in the Pacific Palisades, just north of Santa Monica, south of Malibu. It's, I was supposed to go up there tomorrow, so canceled, staying here. I'm in San Diego, so I'm about 50 miles south of the fires. They've evacuated 30,000 people thus far.
Oh
There's
gosh.
13,000 structures under risk of fire. Yeah, it's great here in Southern California.
Glad you're okay anyway. You're safe.
Yeah,
The main
yeah,
thing.
we're good. We're good. And loving the program. I'm 2 pounds away from my goal, so all good.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Well done.
yeah,
Glad to hear it.
yeah.
How's
And
Gemma
I
and Jessica?
love working with Ashley and Justin, and we've talked before, Justin.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
how's
Great
everything
program.
going?
Yeah. Yeah, oh my God. It's like life changing. And people keep commenting that I look so healthy, that I look younger now than I did 10 years ago. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm
I
glad you're happy.
love it. I love it. It's been the best investment ever. So,
It's amazing. Do you have any family and friends that may need help, DeLinda? Let us know.
yes, I've been giving leads to Ashley. Yeah.
I remember your husband, he was on the call with us maybe 6 months ago.
Yes.
He needs help. You'd be more than
Yeah,
happy to help
he's
him
lost
too.
20 pounds. He eats what I cook and he loves it. Loves the program. So,
So he's even happier now. He sees you looking way younger and fitter and stronger.
oh yeah. I mean, it's just like people look at us and they're like, my God, you guys look so healthy. What are you doing? So yeah, we've given your name to a lot of people. I don't know if they'll, people are kind of flaky. They don't always follow up, but I'm telling everybody about it. So
Really appreciate that.
yeah, I can't wait to do those very last pictures. So 2 pounds away.
Do we have permission to share them on social media? We don't have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a big difference already.
Oh.
But I think by the end of this month, this is my last month. I'm talking the whole time here, Davey. I just
No,
realized.
no, it's okay. We love hearing
All right.
success stories. We love
Okay.
hearing
All
all
right.
these.
Okay. Well, I apologize for dominating the conversation.
No need to apologize. It's all about the clients.
Okay.
Today is
All
all
right.
about you
Well, if
guys.
this helps people, then great. But yeah, it's honest to goodness, my husband's had 2 heart attacks and he had a lot of visceral fat around his stomach, and now that's mostly gone. I bought him all new clothes for Christmas because everything was just falling off of him, and he's got no butt as it is, right? So these big baggy pants, it's not looking good. Anyway, so he's in 32, I can't remember, 36, something like that. Anyway, he went down a pant size and he's healthier. We're both feeling, he's going to be 70. I'm going to be 68 this year. So,
Wow,
yeah.
it's amazing. Just letting other people in. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other wins from clients? We love hearing all these wins. It's great to see everyone in the flesh. But what about Jessica? Any wins to
Well,
share?
I'm down 25 pounds since I started the program, so that's exciting. I still have more to go, but I'll take it.
Fantastic. Gemma, have you wins to share?
I'm down 20 pounds. The program has been absolutely phenomenal for both myself and my husband. And it's not just the weight and the inches lost. It's also just how I feel. Cholesterol way, way down. Just, so many things in the labs. Actually, today I went to the doctor and for my annual physical and got updated labs. So I'm very interested to see where those will come in since the original labs that you guys paid for, which I think were in like May or June. So I'm curious to see already, I'd already, actually, sorry, those labs were in July because I had already been on the program for at least a month and I had already seen substantial improvement in labs that I had done in May. So I'm very interested to see what the additional results will be, based on the labs that I just had today. But I mean, everything just feels so much better. I feel like, I lost 20 pounds in 10 years, just in terms of how I feel and on a day-to-day basis, whether working out or, running after my daughter. I mean, it's been life-changing. And actually, Davey, I do have a couple of folks who I think could really benefit. I've asked the wife, it's another husband and wife, but I've asked the wife to follow you on Instagram, and I think she does now. But do you have just like a summary pamphlet that I could send them? I know that I would have gotten one however many months ago, but if you had one that you could send around, I would be happy to forward that. And I've already been kind of, telling them all about our journey and just how impactful it's been. But, it would be great to see just like a summary of kind of the things that you offer that I could forward to them.
Yeah, for sure. We have like a homework video we send out to clients before they hop on a call with me or John, the other closer. It's basically a 6-minute video describing the whole program in full, the different pillars. There's actually a PDF as well going over the new hormones, women's hormone program. And there's like 20 interviews we've done with clients as well. So I'll text you, Gemma.
That would
sure.
be great. But yeah, no, thank you for everything. Working with Ashley has been phenomenal. Absolutely love our check-in calls, and yeah, I'm thrilled.
Glad to hear that. So if anyone has any questions, just feel free to drop them in the chat. If you have any blood work, you feel like you're comfortable sharing, we can go over that as well. But we do have like a list of questions that I'd like to start off on. So I just have them in my notes here. The first one is like, what are some small changes, lifestyle, diet, etc., that are most effective in managing hormonal shifts during perimenopause and menopause? I can talk about this. What are some small little changes that we can do? Let's talk about the low-hanging fruit, the foundations of health. There's no point in anyone, in my opinion, going on HRT or doing peptides unless you have the foundations of health in place. So what are the foundations of health I'm talking about? Nutrition. Nutrition, in my opinion, it's 90% of the results you're looking for. So unfortunately, what worked for us in our 20s and 30s does not work in our 40s and 50s and beyond. We got away with staying out late in our 20s and 30s, drinking alcohol. In our 40s, especially women, your bodies are very stress sensitive. Your sex hormones are declining. Your metabolism slows down. So the quality of food that ye guys have to be eating on a consistent basis, it's going to have to be like good, healthy fats, high fiber. Fiber is really good for inflammation. Animal protein, just sufficient amount of calories. A lot of people coming into this program unintentionally are under eating. We're seeing like the first 7 days of eating 1,000, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 calories a day. How can we grow muscle eating just 1,200 calories a day? How can we hit our protein and fiber goals eating so little? We're already losing our hormones, and as I said, metabolism is slowing down. We need to work with our body, not against it. So I'm a big fan of the Mediterranean diet. Everyone is different. That's my point of view on nutrition. So the type of movement. I'm not anti-cardio. Some of my reels are a bit over the top, maybe saying I'm not anti-cardio. Cardio, like, it's fantastic for our cardiovascular health, your heart, your lungs. But the type of training I and the coaches would recommend for women midlife who want to be healthy and have vitality and grow muscle, it is strength training. Strength training is the greatest anti-aging product a woman over 40 can have. So rep range, everyone is different. I would suggest maybe 5 to 10 reps. For legs, you could do higher repetitions. If you're already doing like spinning or some other high intensity, I wouldn't say cut it out. You clearly like it, cut back. Okay, so I mean, look, we lose our muscle as we age. It's sarcopenia. We're losing our bone density. It's osteopenia. We need to work with our body. So strength training 3 times a week is more than enough. 30 to 40 minutes. Majority of you clients are not even joining the gym. You don't have to join the gym. Alongside weights and walking. Walking is fantastic. You're getting out into the fresh air. It's vitamin D straight away in the morning. Weights, walking, some low intensity exercises work really well, like Pilates and yoga and swimming. That's the training. Stress management and sleep are crucial. You need to be really dialing into stress management and sleep at this stage of life. So little things like, if I have a wind down routine before bed. No, it's really important. In the morning, we don't look at our phones. Get out in nature. There's some supplements that could work in midlife as well. Like magnesium, it depends on the type of magnesium. I'm sure other coaches have their favorites. I like magnesium glycinate. I like maca. I like vitamin D. It's similar to women midlife as well. That's like the first question. I was kind of rambling on there, and I apologize if I was rambling on, but maybe you guys have, that's the small changes I think. But the other coaches, maybe you have some advice for that or answers for that question.
Yeah, I would agree with you, piggyback on that. I think just removal of processed foods is probably the biggest thing. I could say like is an immediate win is like, hey, we're going to start condensing things out of boxes. We're not consuming that anymore. Looking for a whole diet that is of fresh fruit, non-processed. I agree with you on high amounts of fiber. I think most of us are void of antioxidants and nutrients. So those are things that I talk a lot about when I meet with clients is like, hey, we need to make sure we're getting vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber. Those are usually the most pivotal things. There's caveats with that. Ashley is very good with the GI map. So, there's some fruits and vegetables that are a little bit hard to digest for some people. And it's really working with your coach to fine tune those processes and figure out what foods work best for you. But like good rule of thumb is removal of just junk food and highly processed drinks. Those are easy wins, low hanging fruit that all of us to a degree probably consume even small amounts of that. So being able to be void of those things really will help kind of expedite that process of better health.
Okay, that's actually one of the questions we had, was talking about cholesterol. How do you maybe bring down cholesterol, total cholesterol, or triglycerides, or ApoB, and the hemoglobin A1C, which is that the average of blood sugar levels over the last 3 months? It's probably the same. Lifestyle plays a huge part. It's like reducing inflammation. You need to get enough fiber in your diet, enough animal protein, strength training, and some supplements. What supplements is actually good for controlling blood sugar levels? Is it chromium? Chromium works really well for berberine as well. And then for cholesterol, I've used niacin. My cholesterol, believe it or not, was kind of high around the year. I started taking niacin and Tudka. I think they work really well for me personally.
I personally think with cholesterol, it's person dependent. Sometimes it could be, issues with bile production or clogged bile ducts. That could be a void of fiber or stress on the liver. The other piece is like glucose metabolism directly impacts lipid metabolism. So usually when we see high hemoglobin A1C, high insulin, high glucose. It may not be initially, but eventually we start to see changes in triglycerides, changes in low density lipids. So those bad cholesterols pick up. ApoB, so particle count picks up at that point. They kind of go hand in hand, and there is some connection between the two. So glucose specifically will stimulate the liver and basically cause issues with processing triglycerides appropriately. That's layman's terms. So if we have issues with blood sugar, indirectly we're going to start to impact triglycerides. In turn, LDLs pick up, and that puts you in that pro-inflammatory state. So the thing I think about health in general, there's a root cause for everything, and it's usually one thing, and then it starts to manifest from other things. So a lot of times I think that kind of pinpointing that origin is going to kind of set waves and kind of balance everything out. So we usually get labs and there's 5 or 6 things that are wrong, but usually through questionnaire, diagnostics, history of the individual, we can kind of pinpoint what potentially that bottleneck is and start working on it. That's what's fascinating about this and why I love this. We're all genetically a little different, and what we need, our special recipe, is going to vary from person to person. And that's what keeps me engaged in loving this, is the nuance of health and wellness.
Okay, we'll move on. Pop in the chat, ladies, if you're finding this valuable, or if we're moving on too fast, or if I'm talking too fast. Just let us know in the chat. The next question is a really good one. I like this. Well, what are the roles of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone in energy levels and mood? So estrogen is a very powerful anti-inflammatory hormone. Progesterone is called a calming hormone. It's good for reducing stress and for sleep. Testosterone is not just a male hormone, believe it or not. Women need optimal levels of testosterone as well for energy, for recovery, for body composition. But what do you think plays a huge role in energy and mood for those 3 sex hormones?
For estrogen specifically, estrogen is going to interact directly with mitochondrial function. So it's going to enhance glucose metabolism. What we see with a lot of people as they age, 60s, 70s, 80s, we see Alzheimer's, dementia, basically type 3 diabetes. That's really prevalent in women. Glucose metabolism in the brain starts to downregulate as estrogen starts to deplete. So we have direct interaction with cell mitochondria. So mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell. We all know that. We all went to biology. I think that we all have cells everywhere. Well, we do have cells everywhere in the body. As we have less hormone production, those cells are less efficient at interacting and causing exchange between each other. So there's direct impact there with estrogen. I think of estrogen being more specific, working with serotonin. So, most of the neurotransmitters are going to have some interaction with hormones. Everything has connections. There's really not a lot of end fates. Everything will kind of bleed in together. So we look at estrogen directly impacting serotonin. We look at progesterone directly interacting with GABA in the brain. That's why people talk about progesterone being very calming, very parasympathetic. So we see some direct actions there. I think of testosterone as kind of more of a stress resilient hormone. Testosterone is touted as like the male hormone, and it most definitely is. It's our most abundant sex hormone as men. But for women, increased muscle mass, increased stress resilience. Testosterone is going to blunt the adrenal axis and cause a better response to cortisol. Women genetically have lower levels of testosterone, so stress hormones can be more impactful for them. As for a male, we may not have that same stress response because our androgen load is so high. So testosterone is very important for adequate levels for those reasons. Other reasons, libido, fatty acid oxidation, improved glucose metabolism in the liver. When I see type 2 diabetes in men, a lot of times low testosterone is accompanied in that. I would say with women, to have adequate metabolism, all 3 sex hormones need to be balanced. And if there's dysfunction with one of those, it could throw a loop on how you're feeling. So I really think it's a fine tune. I don't think everybody needs hormones. I'm not saying that, like, especially if you're premenopause, you're still menstruating or you're going through perimenopause. I always say work on those low hanging fruits, but your sex hormones do play a big role in metabolism, energy, well-being.
Good stuff. It's a good question here from DeLinda. I was actually going to ask you about peptides. Kind of a new thing. I'll be honest, this year in Dubai, everyone, I went to a functional medicine doctor. He prescribed me a certain peptide. It was like 5-amino, 1-MQ or something, CJC. It was some weird term. But anyway, the goal was for me to gain muscle from this peptide and to lose belly fat or body fat, whatever. I personally, it didn't have much of an effect on me. I had to inject it into my tummy using an insulin syringe for 3 months. I didn't see much benefits. This was me. Everyone's different. However, my wife did go on certain peptides for her skin and her gut health, and she found them very, very beneficial. She was raving about them. And it's not easy to convince my wife. So it's the whole, I think we were kind of injecting it into our tummies. We felt like kind of, well, this isn't right, but we got over that after a few weeks. But let's talk about what are peptides? Are they safe? Are they FDA approved or what? Tell us more.
Yeah, peptides, simple term, they're basically amino acids sequenced a certain way. They're building blocks to create other hormonal processes in the body. I think about peptides, something that probably resonates with anybody who watches this call. One of the first peptides I think about is insulin. Insulin is a peptide. Glutathione is a tripeptide. It is a 3-amino acid complex that is an endogenous, so naturally occurring antioxidant. So peptides occur naturally in nature, and then some of them are synthetic. Original insulin was actually derived of porcine, I believe. So that's a pig derivative insulin. We're closest as far as structure to pigs. So peptides have been around for quite some time. When we get into the nuance of synthetic peptides and their use in anti-aging functional medicine, there's only a couple that are approved. So everybody's familiar with the Wegovy's, the semaglutides, Mounjaro, tirzepatide. Those are technically FDA approved. There is some study around them. I'm not saying they're good nor bad, but that is an approved peptide. We look at Sermorelin, which is on the FDA approved bulk substance list. So Sermorelin is a growth hormone peptide. It's basically an amino acid structure that you inject into your body, and that causes your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland to produce more growth hormone naturally. So most of these things are going to cause expression in the body. They're building blocks to help create pulses of certain hormones. A lot of the immune-based peptides, the thymic-based peptides, thymosin alpha-1, they're approved in a lot of countries outside of the United States for whatever reason that is. But China, Russia, a lot of countries in Europe are using these to modulate immune system. I believe it is approved in the United States, but not for compounding for Hep B and Hep C. So there could be lots of speculation why we don't compound those here in the US. I'm going to leave it at that, but they are very safe. They are gaining lots of traction in the space. They've been around a long time. I've been using peptides since 2011. So, and they were being used prior to that. So there's lots of benefits to them. They are not long-term treatments. That's the other thing that I really like about them. You can get in, maybe clean up some dysfunction, improve some processes in the body, and get off of them. I think there's like over 1,000 different types of peptides, from collagen production to immune boosting to growth hormone peptides. So really being more specific on what somebody needs based off of their blood work, based off of the GI map, you can kind of pinpoint and direct somebody to what type of peptide they would need. But I wouldn't take them blindly. I definitely consult with somebody, get an understanding of what you need, and then find somebody to be able to prescribe those for you.
Could you put together a document that kind of covers this a little bit? Because that's a lot of content to absorb in a meeting like this. But what peptides you would recommend that are simple, or I mean, just some more detail on how you would figure out what works for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of our partnerships here with the program, we actually have a peptide ebook through a company called First Optimal. I helped create that ebook. So we can get e-copies of those and provide those. It's going to have probably 50 different peptides, the most common peptides that are used, and someone could read about them and see what fits best for them. So absolutely, that's a great question.
What we could do is I could create a folder on the app, the PT Distinction, a specific folder called peptide treatment. And then we can upload PDFs in there with your permission, Justin.
Yeah.
But a quick question, how do you determine the right peptide protocol for an individual specifically? Like everyone's different. You want to...
Absolutely. Yeah. So, something that I learned quite a bit about the past 2 years is actually shadowing Ashley and watching a lot of her videos and looking a lot at the digestive tract. So I think that there's a lot of application for peptides in the gut-based world. Most of us have some sort of dysfunction in our GI tract. There are several peptides that are very helpful for that. So again, diagnostics is probably going to be the best course of action. Are we trying to eradicate some sort of overgrowth, or are we trying to support the GI lining and kind of rebuild that? There's specific peptides for that. So again, blood work, symptoms, and then working with a healthcare professional. Those are the best ways to figure out what peptide you need. I hope that answered your question. I could be a little bit more specific. I know that's vague, but it's very customizable to each person.
The 7 or 8 new clients that signed up for the women's hormone program have access to all that advanced treatments, by the way. Jessica is one. Let's get on to Jessica's question. She's a really good question. Let me just find it here. How soon can our hormones change after a hysterectomy, especially with almost zero perimenopause and menopause symptoms?
I think it's going to be dependent on the person. So if someone, not saying any specific names, has been working on losing weight, improving adrenal status, it may be much more gradual come down. I think that you will most definitely notice that. It's basically removing the two organs that are going to be responsible for secreting, responses of LH and FSH for testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. I would say probably 8 to 12 weeks post-op, you probably would start to experience some symptoms around that. It depends on the person, though. I do think that when we look at the benefits of estrogen, I see a lot of people start to have sleep disturbances. I see libido starting to dwindle. The vagina is a canal that relies on estrogen. So if we look at tissue integrity, elasticity, that region needs a lot of estrogen. So if you're not experiencing symptoms now, you may not have a ton of symptoms initially, but that atrophy of the canal over time will happen. If that's 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 2 years, 3 years, it's just very dependent on the person. I would say the better your health status is in, probably it's much easier come down of hormones versus someone who is inflamed, not living a clean lifestyle. They're probably going to have much more of an abrupt stop and really notice those things. I think either way, you will definitely notice them, but it might be a much gradualer process because you're doing all of the other things.
Did that answer your question, Jessica?
Yeah, that's helpful. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the second question would be, do you need to stay on some form of HRT indefinitely, or can you at some point wean yourself off?
You don't have to take hormones. I would say no one is forced to take hormones. You want to think about your sex hormones. Once ovarian failure happens or we're forced into menopause through a hysterectomy, hormones are not going to come online. I think basically you want to weigh quality of life, and if taking hormones improves that quality of life, probably staying on that. From a health standpoint, goes back to what Davey was talking about at the beginning of the call. If we want to protect bone, we want to protect muscle mass, it makes sense to replace estrogen. I think all three work better together. But I see a lot of primary cares giving out estradiol now because we know that there's a lot of health benefits with that. It's not a coincidence why women in their 70s and 80s fall and break a hip or sneeze and crack a rib. Osteoporosis is very common. So is cardiovascular disease as soon as you stop producing estrogen. So I think quality of life is a factor here. And then long-term health outcomes. Both my mother and stepmother are both on bioidentical hormones, and I was a big proponent of that because I want them to live a long life and have a high quality life. So I do think that they're very helpful. I would consider using them long term. I think there's more to the puzzle. Most people just want to take hormones. We also need to support adrenals, detoxification processes, gut health. All of those things are going to make those hormones work better and have less issues. I think a lot of women have concerns with some of the older data on estrogens causing cancer and hyperplasia of the endometrium. I think most of that is going to be based off of how you're metabolizing estrogen and then the hereditary component to it. So really weighing all of that and working with somebody who really knows what they're doing, because anybody will give you estrogen. You really want to kind of fine tune and work with somebody to make sure that you have the lowest risks and the ball is kind of in your court and you're doing all the right things. I think about that in any health outcome. If I'm going to go have surgery, I'm going to get the best surgeon. I'm going to research him, even if I have to travel to do that. I think of health as really being an advocate of that and stacking those odds in your favor. I hope that answers your question. I know that's a little long-winded.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
I think BHRT is not for everyone. I think obviously it's going to help manage menopause symptoms, but we have to look at the long-term benefits Justin said there. It's very protective of our future hip factors, our brain, our bones, our heart. It prevents chronic diseases. There's a really good book I think somebody should read. It's called Estrogen Matters by a guy, a really smart guy who's been working with women on hormones and breast cancer for the last 20 years, Avram Blooming. So the book is called Estrogen Matters. It goes over the facts and the fears of breast cancer in women. Like the studies showing that BHRT reduces hip fractures by up to 35%. That's huge. Like the number one killer in the whole world for men and women, it's cardiovascular disease. BHRT, it's not synthetic HRT. It reduces cardiovascular disease by 50%. That's massive. And then it reduces Alzheimer's and dementia by up to 50% as well. So you got to look at it like it's not for everyone. It's if you want to come off it, it's fine, but you lose that protectiveness of your brain, your bones, and your heart. That's what it's there for. It just gives a woman a better quality of life. I think, but why are so many people in fear of HRT? So what happened in 2002? The Women's Health Initiative, they released a press conference basically saying that hormones, HRT causes breast cancer and I think cardiovascular disease. Literally overnight, the prescriptions for HRT in the United States of America went from 20% down to 4%. Huge misinformation. The same organization came out 18 years later and literally said, we're wrong. It was misinformation. It was debunked. The study that they done was actually in women in their 60s. The average age was a woman in her 61. So they were already in a very low hormone state. So they're already susceptible to chronic diseases. And the type of hormones they used was synthetic HRT. It was actually progestin, not natural progesterone. It's two different. It's completely different. A lot of people think progestin, which is found in birth control, is the same as natural progesterone. No. And the other type of hormone they used was taken from pregnant urine of a mare or a horse. So that's, I think, again, I don't think many people are aware of that. That book goes over it in more detail. But again, it's not for everyone, but I think people should know the facts. And that's what we're trying to do today. Just give people the option of possibly doing it to give them a better quality of life. My goal as a business owner is to just give a woman a better quality of life. I've been on calls for the last 7 years. One of the questions I ask, do you mind if I ask, what medication are you on, like, at the moment? I'm hearing stories like they're on like medication for osteoporosis, statin, high blood pressure. The doctor is giving these women antidepressants, sleeping pills, anti-anxiety meds. None of these are natural. And the doctors are not getting to the root cause. You can replace those hormones naturally, called bioidentical HRT. I'm not pushing this on anyone. I just want a woman to have a better quality of life, live longer. I don't want anyone, men or women, to be in a nursing home, like, unable to pee. That's what happens. You know, your grandkids taking care of you, or your kids. You need to be running after your grandkids. That's my goal. That's why I'm doing these, giving options for advanced treatments. I want everyone to learn about peptides. I want everyone to have given the option of maybe going on hormone treatment. Like, some of the stories I hear on these calls, like women having hysterectomies, their life is just completely turned around. It's very sad. And the women need a better fucking someone to stand up and just say, hey, you could possibly do this. Let's go down this route. Like, you can eat really well, you can take supplements, you can train really well, but it's not going to bring back sex hormones. Unfortunately, once the average age of menopause is 51, the sex hormones will not come back without potentially HRT. Sorry for rambling on there. It's kind of passionate about this. I just genuinely want people to help people and have a better quality of life. Has anyone any questions on that?
I see DeLinda posted a question in regards to which method of delivery do you recommend? I think that all hormones probably are going to have different delivery methods. If we're talking estrogen, my least favorite form of estrogen is probably oral estrogen. It's pretty much women on this call. I'm sure one of you know a girl who had taken birth control through her adolescence, 20s, and developed thick blood, high red blood cell count, clotting factors became an issue. We can see that with bioidentical estrogen or synthetic estrogen. So my least favorite form of estrogen is oral estradiol. Just the thrombic risks are too high. It's also hepatotoxic, or not necessarily hepatotoxic, but it does process through the liver. Liver is responsible for a bunch of things. We have different delivery methods available. A topical cream, a patch is fine. I prefer injectables myself. If I'm going to use something, you can get precision dosing with those types of things. So injectable estradiol, injectable testosterone, those seem to work quite well. Progesterone seems to do best in a sublingual, so dissolvable tablet, in oral form, or you can do a transdermal. I'm not a huge advocate of transdermal progesterone. Just based off of like the molecular weight of that, the absorption rate could be quite low. I do see the oral forms to work the best, but creams and injectables for the testosterone and estrogen, oral for the progesterone, in my personal opinion. The whole thing with medical providers, they're all going to have their own different stance. They are all practicing medicine. It is a practice. No one has it fine-tuned. So everybody's going to have their own prescribing modalities. I'm not a medical provider, but I work with several medical providers, and we have similar thoughts on those processes of using those hormones. I hope that answered your question, DeLinda.
Yeah, I've been using exactly what you said, a cream for estrogen, testosterone, and oral for progesterone for 17 years since I turned 50. And it really does work. But I'm interested in now going to the injectables because I think you're hard to control the dosing unless it's an injectable. I think I understand that now, and you explained that before. And thank you for covering that again because I see the difference.
Absolutely. I think the big thing we see with the topical solutions, well, how much did you sweat that day? Did you put your shirt on? Did you actually bump into your husband? You know, like all of those little things matter. Is like if we're doing a small subcutaneous injection of that drug, it's less frequency. Exposure to animals, loved ones, that's going to be very low. And then we have precise dosing. So we need to, if we need to go up or we need to go down, we can literally measure that. As a toppy click, you're probably familiar with that twist and pump mechanism on your compounded medication. Sometimes it spits out a bunch, sometimes it gives you a drop. You don't know how much you're doing, you just rub it on. So there's always just inconsistency with it. But ease of use, if someone was like, hey, I'm not going to inject it, there's no way I'm going to touch a needle. Sure, try the creams. You know, I think that's a great way to at least start and try it and see if you have some release from that. But fine tuning that process, I'm a big advocate of the injectable forms. But really, whatever somebody's willing to try to start is perfectly fine. DeLinda, quick question for you. Are you doing bone scans, checking bone mineral density? How's that?
You know what? I did that. My primary care doctor recommended a bone density. I'd never done that before, and I have osteopenia. So I'm taking, Ashley's got me on 1,000 milligrams of calcium a day, and then my vitamin D, and to prevent from getting osteoporosis. And I've always thought of myself as an extremely healthy person, so I was shocked to hear that because nutrition is important to me, always has been. So this is all of these things that you're talking about are, you know, I've gone through it. So I just wish I had known more before, you know, when I was 50 instead of getting on the program when I was 67. But better late than never, right?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's super helpful. You have like actual practical application with doing these types of things. That speaks volume. You know, someone can sit behind the screen and talk about those things, really being able to be like, hey, I've actually done that. I've had improvements in quality of life. You know, I would assume bone mineral density is probably higher than most women. I don't know if they gave you a percentage, but yours is probably higher than a lot of people in that same demographic as you because you have been replacing hormones. That would be my assumption. Davey, I think we had a couple questions from the coaches as well. I don't know if we were going to get to those, but would like to cover those.
Yeah, one of the clients, can we do one more question for one of the clients? Text me. She's been on HRT for the last 5 months, and at first it was great. Now the symptoms are worse around her periods. Is this normal? She started taking HRT for horrible irritability and slightly lower estrogen. She's not sure if it's working now. She told me what she was taking now. She is on the synthetic progestin. It's not bioidenticals, not natural progesterone, and she's on estradiol as well. But my opinion is, doesn't she need to do blood work like month 3? Like she hasn't done blood work in month 5, and isn't regular adjustments needed to customize? Like it may take 3 months, 6 months to feeling optimally. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you're pretty spot on with doing diagnostics. It's not a silver bullet, so you're going to have to fine tune and figure out how hormones work for you. The things I think about most and things that we preach is supporting your phase 1, 2, and 3 of estrogen metabolism. So if someone is replacing estrogen, say they're perimenopause, estrogen is low, maybe they're bleeding 3 times a year, and then their prescriber put them on estrogen. It was good initially, and then it starts to become an issue later. If we're not supporting phase 2 and phase 3 of estrogen metabolism, there's a high chance we're going to recirculate those estrogens. So the longer we're exposed to it, the more chronic those symptoms could be. So it could be dosing. It could be that she's on a synthetic progestin. The other things that a lot of practitioners don't look at is supporting those processes so you're able to excrete those toxins. When estrogen is conjugated and basically inactivated, we are supposed to excrete it through stool. I would say the majority of the ladies who come in here have some sort of digestive issue. So if we're going to take hormones on top of that, I just think it could be a bad scenario. So kind of addressing those issues first before taking them. What I would tell that individual is probably some blood work. I would probably look at a dried urine analysis so we can get phase 1 and phase 2 of estrogen metabolism. If that doesn't fix it, I'm a huge advocate of GI map as well. We can look at beta glucuronidase and see if that's an issue, see what other issues are going on in the digestive tract to see if we can figure out where that bottleneck is and kind of relieve symptoms. So I hope that is valuable to her. That would be my recommendation.
This client is in Canada, so unfortunately, you can't work with clients in Canada unless they go across the border and have a USA address. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the border policies pretty strict. I'm assuming. I've never seen any telemedicine-based company in the United States be able to ship directly to other countries. You can do diagnostics, labs, but when we start getting into medications, controlled or non-controlled, you would have to be have a U.S. residence to be able to receive that package.
Because unfortunately, she only sees her doctor once a year. She's out of the country. That's not uncommon for people to be put on hormones and never hear from a doctor again. I remember in the UK there was 2 clients who were given hormone treatment and they never heard from their doctor or didn't do any blood work. So how often should, in your opinion, someone went on hormones, they should be in communication with their provider and doing blood work?
Yeah, I would say if it's a new process and you're starting hormone replacement therapy, 8 to 12 weeks post treatment, you need to retest things, make sure that your testosterone is not too high. Testosterone is bad if it's too high. We can have lots of symptoms around that. We also want to make sure that if you're replacing estrogen and you're in menopause, that your FSH is suppressed and your body is recognizing there's enough estrogen present. I think a lot of times it's just a generic, like, hey, here's a oral estradiol, you have symptoms, good luck. That individual has a very terrible experience with that process and never wants to touch hormones again. I think that's an unfair assessment or practice to do. It's going to scare people away. So I would say, 2 to 3 times a year, your first time doing it. So that may be initial set, 12 weeks, 6 months, and then retest 6 months again. I would say for someone who's been using hormones long term, every 6 months, you should be doing like biannual blood work. That would be a minimum. I do blood work 4 times a year. I just started doing a GI map at least once a year as well. I think blood work will give you the most understanding of what's going on with your health. I'm a huge advocate of that. I feel like most people want to spend money on medications and drugs and weight loss pills, but really those things are not nearly as important as looking at diagnostics and figuring out what's going on.
Question. Give us 10 minutes. Okay. Next question. Does the state of your liver affect how HRT can be used effectively? How can we know if the enzyme looks normal?
Sure. The thing I think what's being asked here is like on a standard CBC or CMP, so a metabolic panel, we test that. We're only going to have the ability to see ALT and AST. Those are the liver enzymes. We also have a marker called bilirubin. Those are indicators. Sometimes those are normal, but an individual could still be having issues with maybe detoxifying hormones. I personally like to look at a homocysteine. So a homocysteine is actually going to show how well the liver is methylating things. A high homocysteine means there's an inability to complete the process of making glutathione. Glutathione is a master antioxidant. It's made in the liver. So it doesn't directly impact liver status as far as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or clogged bile ducts, but it could be more specific. It's like, hey, there's issues with methylation. The liver is under stress. you need methyl donors to deactivate estrogen. So phase 1 estrogen metabolism is hydroxylated based. That means it's water based. Phase 2 is the additions of methyl donors. That's what deactivates those estrogens. So homocysteine, glutathione. I would look at a Dutch test if someone is curious on that process. But the liver is going to impact, I can think like 12 hormones off the top of my head that the liver impacts. So it's a very crucial. Supporting the liver is probably one of the most important things to do when we're just looking at improving our health status. We're exposed to so many toxins. Being able to upregulate the liver and get it at a high capacity would be my recommendation for pretty much anybody I talk to. And I would say the majority of the ladies I've spoke to through this program, that's something in that process, and everybody's a little different. If that's TUDCA, that's methylated B vitamins, if that's more fiber, if that's N-acetylcysteine. But the liver is very important, and if we have a sluggish liver, we are going to have a hard time metabolizing hormones, and that can make that experience much worse. So I do think it's very important. Outside of blood tests and urine testing, you can do imaging. That's expensive, and if you don't have a indication for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, it's a cash pay expense, and organ imaging is quite expensive. So I would kind of use symptoms, some baseline diagnostics, figure out what's going on with the liver. But yes, it could impact hormone replacement significantly because we're adding additional medication into the body. So we want to make sure we're able to break those things down appropriately.
How much power does the liver hold in keeping hormone process flowing smoothly? I think we touched on that a bit already.
Yeah, I definitely hit that. I think 11 hormones. So like cortisol has interaction, glucagon has interaction, insulin has interaction, growth hormone has interaction. Just like there's so many things that are involved in the liver. So supporting it is helpful. All of us need to do that. I won't continue to ramble on that, but I believe probably Coach Charlotte probably wrote that or asked about that. The liver is huge. She knows that I agree with her on that. That's something that I think that we all should support.
Alcohol. I think there's a question on alcohol. Why do we need to limit alcohol in perimenopause? And what does it do to the body in this phase of life? Well, wouldn't alcohol drive up the stress hormone cortisol further? It would disrupt your sleep, the hot flashes, the night sweats. You're already going through that. Why would you pour fuel on the fire? In my opinion, you gotta, with this phase of life, you just really need to dial in your adherence and discipline. And that includes, unfortunately, alcohol.
I don't really see a reason to consume alcohol outside of social activities. Like I don't consume it personally. I don't really think that there's a reason to consume it. It is its own macronutrient. It is non-essential. That's why we don't calculate it with fats, carbs, and proteins. Alcohol is inflammatory. It's going to disrupt mitochondrial function. It's going to increase neuroinflammation. It's going to increase reactive oxygen species. I would say limit to consume no alcohol. I think a lot of people also consume, alcohol high in wheat, which just doesn't really, not going to help your health any, getting an extra 200-300 calories from beer or wine. Those calories are better served of getting nutrient-rich foods. It's my own opinion. I don't really see a point to consume alcohol outside of you're trying to relax, which I think there's a lot of other ways to have a good time or relax instead of drinking alcohol.
And indirectly as well, it has a huge effect on fat loss. I know when I'm hungover anyway, I have no interest in working out or meal prepping. My motivation goes out the window. So, next few days and a hangover as we get older. I don't know if you notice, my hangovers these days last up to 3 days. So this is, I don't think it's in our best interest to drink heavily. Hypothyroidism has what can we do to help someone who has a sluggish thyroid? Again, it's the quality of food, isn't it? It's like You know, it's the amount of food. If you're chronically under eating or not getting enough fats or carbs, that actually has a big impact on your T3, your T4. So just getting sufficient amount of calories in and the quality of food, and of course, sufficient amount of iodine, selenium, and cut back or even cut out high intensity, um, excessive amounts of cardio. But it's your body's under stress, so you need to do everything in your power to not put your body under stress. It does supplements. It depends on, would it depend on blood work or like what they're deficient in terms of what to supplement with, or is it usually selenium or iodine?
Yeah, I would say most people aren't consuming 2 to 3 Brazil nuts every day. Those are going to be very high in iodine. I actually hate them, so I won't consume them. And that's a running joke I have with everybody I do blood work reviews with. I'm like, you can eat them, but I don't like them, so I just supplement it. There's really no wrong way to do that, but I would say like almost all of us are deficient in selenium. We have a blood spot test that we do offer. It does show the essential and toxic elements. So it's going to have iodine and selenium in it. I would say 90% of those is people are deficient in one of those. The other thing that I think that globally, we're all in this health kick. We all use a Celtic salt. We all use a Redmond sea salt. Those, if you look at the label on it, it says not a source of iodine. Iodine is an essential nutrient. So I'm not saying use junk table salt to get iodine, but be able to get iodine through different means of food. Table salt was the traditional way that we've done it for a really long time, and we've continued to move away from that. Most table salt's full of a bunch of additional junk. So you could use a high quality sea salt infused with iodine, a fourth of a teaspoon 1 to 2 times a day, or you could supplement, around 100 micrograms of iodine daily. But most of us are deficient in that. Iodine is going to have direct response on thyroglobulin, so not the antibodies, but the synthesis of T4 into T3. And then selenium has a lot to do with that cleavage of the iodine molecule from T4 into T3. Selenium is also an antioxidant for the thyroid gland. So we see a lot of women with Hashimoto's here. Selenium is going to be very helpful for that individual. So I recommend most people supplement it. I take 250 micrograms every day. I am also hypothyroid. I also take thyroid medication. I still take selenium. I still take iodine on top of it because they're essential nutrients.
But what about for people that are on Synthroid and for 10, 15 years, levothyroxine, and we look at their TSH and it's like 3, 4, it's 3 T3 is like low, and they're not like, can you explain that? What you're on medication, but their labs obviously is not optimal. Is it like they're not dosaged correctly, or the wrong type of drug, or is it a combination of T3, T4 they should be taking, or what?
Yeah, traditionally, I think Synthroid is probably one of the top medications prescribed here in the U.S. So if we look at like drugs that are commonly prescribed, we have our Synthroids, we have our metformins, we have our omeprazoles, we have our statins. Those are kind of like the things that are reoccurring invoices. I want to use my words wisely here. So, basically, those are very common prescriptions. In traditional medicine, we don't test a T3. So trilyrothyronine is not something that is tested on labs. It's a cash pay order. So when you go to your PCP or he refers you to an endocrinologist, it's really hard to get that T3 reading. So if we're taking Synthroid, that is synthetic T4. Your body is responsible of converting those molecules down, removal of the iodine molecule to make T3. So a lot of times people will still be symptomatic and their TSH may be still really high because they're not converting that. Is that a liver issue? Is that a cellular issue? Is it an autoimmune issue? Is it a digestive tract issue? It varies from person to person. I take a compounded thyroid medicine, T4 and T3, because I personally think it helps me absorb it and it suppresses my TSH to be within a normal range. So that would be my recommendation for most people, is probably a dual therapy. You could do that synthetic form, or you could use a Armour thyroid, which is part T4, T3. Either of those seem to be better options. It's just hard to get them to be covered by an insurance provider. But yeah, it's very common to see people symptomatic with using a levothyroxine, still having high TSH, still being hypothyroidism, because it's not a full, complete picture.
There's one last question in the chat. Gemma.
Yeah, Gemma, your question around, I'll read it. Is there another lab result that might really highlight a need to include this in routine? I have great bone mineral density, at least now at 45, no real symptoms. What should I look out for in my labs that might tell me that this would be a good fit for me? With the loss of menstrual cycle, the average age for women to go through menopause is 51. So you're a couple years early. Some women do go sooner, some go later. When we look at what is signaling in blood work, LH and FSH, specifically FSH, that's going to rise over time. So basically, your brain is telling your ovaries, hey, please make more estrogen. There's not enough present, but the ovaries are underactive or soon to fail. So that response goes up. So we want to be able to address that and be able to support estradiol at that point. Even if someone were asymptomatic, we go back to supporting bone, supporting brain, supporting cardiovascular system. So I would just be tracking my LH, my FSH, my estradiol, my testosterone, my progesterone. Maybe every 6 months. Eventually, you're going to start missing cycles. Those hot flashes are going to come on weird months. Some months you won't have them, some months you will. And that's perimenopause. You have to do that dance for a little bit. Your prescriber is not going to deem you menopausal until you go 1 full year without a bleed. I know lots of women who will go 2 or 3 years and bleed once every year, and they still can't get that diagnosis. So really being able to track your labs and see on certain months that FSH is really high and your estrogen is very low. We really want to start supporting hormonal processes and replacing as soon as we start to see a dip, because whatever's lost as far as bone, whatever neurodegenerative types of issues are happening, if we don't step in and start to counteract that, those things progress and you can't reduce that or gain that back. So timing absolutely matters with hormones. Gemma, I hope that answered your question. That's my thoughts on it.
That wraps things up. It was a really good call. I enjoyed it. Great to see you as well, DeLinda, everyone here.
It was great. And Justin, I really want to talk to you about your program because I'm ready to do it now. We went over it on the phone and now I'm really excited to try it.
Yeah, the hormone piece, you still have my email. You
Yeah.
feel free to reach out to me.
Okay.
I'm happy to do that. We can definitely connect on that and we'll go from there.
Okay. Terrific. This was fantastic, guys. Thank you.
Would you think this would be valuable every week, DeLinda? Do you
Yes.
hop on every week?
Yeah, I would. You know what? This is you're going over some newer content like peptides. I had no idea any of that. I mean, I'm very aware of the hormonal aspect, but my son-in-law just recommended a senolytic accelerator and sentient cells. I mean, there's a lot of technology out there. There's a lot of information that I'm sure people aren't aware of. And so I think, I mean, Justin is so incredibly knowledgeable. It would be great to have these conversations. And I like the interaction. I mean, it's a unique aspect of the program, Davey. So yeah, I think it's a real benefit. It's something that you can't get by reading, you know,
Exactly.
an email or
Personal.
on the internet. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you everybody for showing up.
Well, I'm retired, so this is I got time. And
I'll
at this
pull the
point, I
replay.
just want to focus on my health. I really do. I mean, what else do you have? That's all you have at this age. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay.
I'll send over the replay on the app and the email to
Fantastic.
everyone.
Okay. And take this part off.
Thanks, Joy.
Okay, bye.
Have a great
Have a
day.
great day. Okay, bye now.
Bye.